CBS questions Malachi Moreno's status in the NBA draft, claiming he is still expected to return to Kentucky. Is Moreno simply adopting a strategy, and will he return to the Wildcats? Let's take a closer look. The future of the Kentucky Wildcats may be revolving around a single decision, and few stories have garnered as much attention in Lexington as Malachi Moreno's situation. What seemed practically resolved a few weeks ago, with the almost unanimous feeling that the center would return to Kentucky after testing the professional market, has now taken on new dimensions and opened up space for a much deeper discussion. After all, is Moreno really establishing himself as a first-round pick in the NBA draft, or is all this part of a carefully constructed strategy to maximize his value before a return to the Wildcats? This is precisely the question that is beginning to dominate conversations surrounding the program, especially after recent analyses raised doubts about the center's actual market position. When Moreno announced his entry into the draft and his participation in the combine, the initial interpretation was quite clear. He would seek feedback, understand how he was being evaluated by franchises, and most likely return to Lexington with even more motivation to lead Kentucky. It was the expected script. It was the natural move for a talented, young player with enormous room for growth. But the scenario began to change when reports indicated that Moreno was receiving extremely positive evaluations from teams positioned between the middle and end of the first round. A particularly solid workout with the New York Knicks further increased the buzz around his name, and what seemed like a practically guaranteed return began to be treated with more caution. Within the BBN, confidence remained, but there was no longer the same absolute certainty. The most interesting thing is that the doubts did not arise from a lack of talent. Nobody inside or outside Kentucky questions Moreno's potential. On the contrary, his size, mobility, defensive reading, and potential for development make him an extremely attractive prospect. The debate is much more tied to the specific context of this draft, considered by many experts to be one of the deepest and most competitive classes in recent years. In such a talent-rich environment, every detail counts, every practice session matters. Every strategic choice can significantly alter the perception of the franchises. And it was precisely at this point that important questions arose from national analysts. The prevailing assessment among various scouts still seems to be one of caution regarding Moreno's ability to truly secure a safe first-round position. Many see potential, but also believe he is exactly on that fine line between the end of the first round and the beginning of the second. This difference in the world of professional basketball changes absolutely everything. At the same time, some of Moreno's and his team's moves began to be interpreted as extremely calculated. The fact that he chose not to participate in certain 5-on-5 drills in the pre-draft process drew attention, especially while other highly rated centers decided to expose themselves more directly. For many, this was seen as a deliberate strategy to protect his image in the market and avoid any risk of a drop in the perception of the franchises. However, there is a fundamental detail that makes this whole story even more intriguing. The financial issue for a possible return is already completely resolved. Moreno's image rights agreement with Kentucky, built in partnership with his representatives and the program structure, was reportedly finalized weeks ago. In other words, there is currently no pending negotiation to extract better numbers from Kentucky. This chapter, it seems, has already been closed. This completely changes the interpretation of events. If there is no open financial dispute, then what is the purpose of so many positive rumors circulating? Some believe this may simply reflect genuinely strong feedback received from the franchises. Others understand that there may be an attempt to further strengthen his position with the NBA teams. Whatever the explanation, one thing seems increasingly clear: Moreno is really being taken seriously. Even so, within Kentucky, the dominant feeling remains one of optimism. There's a perception that the pivot player perfectly understands what a return could mean for his career. So what now? Former Kentucky point guard Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has officially reached another historic milestone in his professional career by winning the NBA Most Valuable Player award for the second consecutive year, definitively cementing his name among the giants of the league's modern era and further reinforcing the pride of all who followed his early steps in Lexington. The confirmation that Shai would win the award again came from Shams Charania, one of the most respected journalists when it comes to NBA behind-the-scenes coverage, ending any doubt about what many had considered inevitable throughout the season. After another dominant, consistent, and absolutely spectacular year, Gilgeous-Alexander not only repeated the feat of the previous season, but also raised his level even higher within the sport. Leading the Oklahoma City Thunder, Shai commanded one of the most impressive campaigns in the entire league. Oklahoma City finished the regular season with 64 wins, the best record in the NBA, an even more impressive feat considering the franchise had to cope with one of the highest injury-related game losses of the entire season. Even facing physical challenges and constant rotation changes, the Thunder never lost their identity. And much of that was because their star player delivered excellence night after night. The numbers help to illustrate the magnitude of this historic season. Shai finished the year averaging 31.1 points, 6.6 assists, and 4.3 rebounds per game, superstar statistics that by themselves would place him among the best players on the planet. But the impact of the former Wildcat went far beyond the raw numbers. He was the team's point of equilibrium, the creator in crucial moments, the player capable of controlling the pace of the games, and, above all, the leader who transformed collective talent into concrete results. Winning his second consecutive MVP immediately places him in an extremely exclusive group. Gilgeous-Alexander became the first player to win the award in consecutive seasons since Nikola Jokic, who achieved this feat in 2021 and 2022. Among point guards, the last to achieve something similar was Stephen Curry in the historic 2015 and 2016 seasons. Now, Shai's name officially occupies that same level of greatness, and his individual achievements continue to impress. Gilgeous-Alexander became the first point guard in NBA history to average more than 30 points per game with at least 55% shooting accuracy during an entire season, a rare combination of offensive volume and elite efficiency. In an era dominated by high pace, difficult shots, and extreme offensive production, maintaining this level of accuracy while carrying such offensive prominence is something reserved for truly special players. His season also placed him alongside Michael Jordan in another historic statistic. Now, the two are the only players in league history to accumulate 4 consecutive seasons averaging at least 30 points, 5 assists, and shooting over 50%. This statistic alone shows that Shai isn't just having a great run, he's building a legacy. As if that weren't enough, he also joined a group that includes only Wilt Chamberlain and Elgin Baylor by not scoring fewer than 20 points in any game throughout the entire season. It's the kind of consistency that separates stars from true phenomena and explains why, today, Shai's name is treated as an absolute benchmark within the league. For Kentucky, seeing this growth isn't exactly a surprise, but rather the confirmation of something that was already noticeable during his time in Lexington. In the 2017-18 season, still wearing the Wildcats jersey, Shai quickly showed that he possessed something different. Under John Calipari's leadership, he emerged as one of the most important players on that roster, combining intelligence, maturity, game reading, and impressive composure under pressure. That season, he helped Kentucky win the SEC tournament title, taking a leading role in crucial moments and finishing the year with averages of 14.4 points and 5.1 assists per game. His growth throughout the season caught the attention of the entire college basketball community, and his name quickly went from promising player to an inevitable first-round pick in the NBA draft, being selected 11th overall in 2018. Speaking of baseball, the Wildcats' regular season came to an end with one of those games that perfectly summarizes the competitive identity this group has built throughout the year: resilience, responsiveness, and a refusal to simply accept the script imposed by the opponent. The end of the regular season came against one of the most traditional programs in the country, the Arkansas Razorbacks, and the start of the game seemed to indicate an extremely complicated afternoon for Kentucky. Arkansas opened the game devastatingly, scoring 10 runs in the first inning and putting enormous pressure on the Wildcats right from the start. Against many teams, a blow of that magnitude could mean the end of competitiveness within the game. But Kentucky showed, once again, that it has developed something very valuable this season: personality. Even facing a heavy disadvantage, the Wildcats remained alive, inning after inning, waiting for the right moment to react. And when that moment arrived, it came explosively. In the fifth inning, Kentucky staged one of the most impressive responses of its entire season, producing 9 runs in a single inning and completely transforming the atmosphere of the game. The score, which seemed practically decided, suddenly showed 12-12, in a comeback that perfectly exemplifies why this group continues to be respected throughout the college scene. Arkansas managed to regain control of the game in the 6th inning and closed the series with a 16-12 victory. But even with the adverse result, Kentucky left this weekend showing much more than just numbers on the scoreboard. What became evident was the competitiveness of a team that doesn't give up, regardless of the circumstances. Now, with the regular season officially over, Kentucky arrives at the most important moment of the calendar with an overall record of 31 wins and 20 losses, in addition to a 13-17 record within the conference. The numbers reflect the tough schedule faced by the Wildcats, but also show a team that has accumulated enough wins to put itself in a real position to compete for bigger things in this final stretch. And now the focus shifts completely to Hoover, Alabama, home of the traditional SEC baseball tournament, where Kentucky will have another opportunity to prove its evolution and further strengthen its record on the national stage. The Wildcats enter the tournament as the 13th seed, a position that places Kentucky before an immediate and very high-level challenge right in their Tuesday debut, a matchup against the Vanderbilt Commodores, a team that won the series between the teams during the regular season by 2-1 when they faced each other in April. Vanderbilt arrives at the tournament with numbers very close to Kentucky's, carrying a 32-24 overall record and 14-16 within the conference, which makes this duel even more balanced and significant. There are no clear favorites when two teams with such similar records meet at this stage of the year, and this opens up space for momentum, confidence, and the ability to execute in decisive moments to make all the difference. And in that aspect, Kentucky has real reasons to believe. Despite their stumble against Arkansas, the Wildcats arrive in Hoover buoyed by their important series win over the South Carolina Gamecocks, a result that helps solidify the perception that the program is in a very comfortable position in the race for a spot in the national tournament. The most recent projections place Kentucky in a secure position to reach the NCAA Division I baseball tournament, especially after the important victory over Arkansas during the series. Still, in such a competitive environment, security never means complacency. A victory in Hoover could represent much more than simply advancing in the SEC tournament. It could mean eliminating any remaining doubts, improving national standing, strengthening the team's confidence, and, above all, sending a clear message to the rest of the country that Kentucky isn't just there to participate. The Wildcats arrive wounded by the end of the regular season, but at the same time strengthened by how they reacted to adversity. And often, in tournaments like this, it is precisely the teams that learn to survive the most difficult moments that end up building their most memorable campaigns. Are you following baseball? Comment below.